Hello and welcome back to the Hibs Observer. We're here for our Monday afternoon briefing with myself, Liam Bryce, joined by Craig Nisbet to take a look back over Hibs' 2-1 defeat to Motherwell at Easter Road on Saturday. A bad day again for David Gray and his side, and it just leaves an awful lot of questions to answer heading into what is now going to be, I'd imagine, a pretty long international break. Craig, as always, thank you for joining us. How are you today?
Yeah, not bad, mate. Not bad at all.
I think that says it all. Right, before we get started, obviously, folks, just a quick shout, as always, for our sponsor. Just like this is thoroughly unprofessional of me not getting this up in advance. Just bear with me a wee second here, folks. Really poor planning this, Craig. I do apologise, but we do need to do it, unfortunately. Right, let me see. Where are we? Let's go here. Okay, we're good to go. Good Vibes Giveaways are proud to sponsor the Hibs Observer and offer fantastic prizes to fans of the club. Prizes change weekly and they include tech and gadgets, days out, weekends away, tax-free cash, and even Oasis tickets. So get your tickets now at www.goodvibesgiveaways.com and enter for your chance to spread the good vibes. Okay, let's get right into Saturday's game. I think if the only place to start, I would think, is I think we'll take a look at the team selection because I know we're sitting here with the benefit of 2020 hindsight now, but I really didn't expect David Gray to pick the same team, and I know it can be difficult for managers sometimes. Where if you've come off, I know it was still a defeat at Ibrox, but it was a more positive performance, and then maybe wanting to reward guys for that effort and give them the chance to go out and build on it. But did you expect to see changes, or were you happy with the team? How did you feel when that came out?
Yeah, I suppose earlier in the season, we were switching setups and players quite often, and I suppose our big thing when we talked a lot on the podcast was like, right, we need some consistency. We need consistency, and that was the kind of the word of the day. However, I didn't think, the setup away to Rangers, I thought he got spot on. I think the lineup was spot on. The type of player profiles he had in each position worked as well. It made a lot of sense. The subs were questionable at that point, but I kind of understood that players tired. You've got to get people off the bench and on and look after players and things like that. So overall, it was a really good blueprint. But I would say that type of team is your away to Rangers, maybe away to Celtic, maybe even say away to an Aberdeen or a Hearts, where you are looking to, absorb a bit of pressure and then maybe look to change things up the second half. I didn't think there would be wholesale changes. I didn't think Lewis Miller had a particularly great game against Rangers, so I thought he would have went out the team. I would have put Cadden back to right back. I thought Eli Yuan, I don't know what's really going on there. Difficult first half against St Johnstone. He came on against Rangers. He wasn't great, but it was Rangers had dominating the ball at that point, and we were just sort of sitting in. To not see him start was really disappointing, and not to see him come on was even more disappointing. So I don't really know what's going on there. I kind of would have liked to have seen him start, and then Josh Campbell, like I've spoke about him before, and that I think he can play a role in the Hibs team, and I think away to Rangers and stuff like that, his energy, his organisation, his pressing is very, very good. But in a game where the demands of the number 10 is to link the play and create, it's just something he's not consistent at, and I don't think it's his strength. And I would have liked to have seen Molotnikov get the nod ahead of him. And then I suppose then you maybe then think about your midfield and think, right, well, let's have maybe Triantis sitting deeper. We could have then just had Kwon and Rudy maybe play as a 2 rather than having 2 deeper players and things like that. So yeah, I understood it in terms of consistency and that level, but the game against Motherwell was always going to be very different. We were going to have more of the ball, create more chances, and I think when you've got that chance, you need sort of better, more attacking players and more creative players in those positions.
Yeah, it was. I felt like the Rangers team selection, or the team selection at Rangers, was a very kind of, as you say, it was a sort of horses for courses type. And I think, again, if we keep bringing it back to this, David Gray talking about being adaptable, I did expect to see, some more adapting from Ibrox to home to Motherwell. And I don't want to be using too much 2020 hindsight, I think Hibs did more than enough in the game, created more than enough chances to win the game. I think that was a sort of key theme of it, is that they were wasteful and they were punished for being wasteful. I'm just going to have a wee look at the team selection here. So you can see here, folks, this is just it's a passing network really from our partners at StatsBomb, and it gives you an idea of not just what the lineup was, but the sort of average positions that players took up on the park. The bigger the sort of circle around a player's name indicates that they were more involved in the play, they received more passes, they made more passes. So I think you can I think this is actually really quite representative of how I think especially the first half played out. I felt like Miller and Cadden got quite advanced quite a lot in that first half, but it was too often for me. I think it just resulted in sort of speculative crossing into the box a wee bit. There was not too often I felt like actually getting in behind the Motherwell defence or getting around them. It was easy enough, I thought, for them to deal with. I know that Kukarevic's that best chance of the first half came from a Jordan Obita cross on the other side, but I do feel like it was kind of low percentage crosses that were a wee bit of a theme of that first half. And I think what you've said there about Josh Campbell, Craig, it sort of bears out in there. You can see that blue circle, this small blue circle there around his name, just kind of indicates that struggled to get on the ball. And when he did get on the ball, wasn't able to sort of influence it too much. So that those red circles you see around Jordan Obita there, that kind of colour scale is what our kind of partners at StatsBomb, they'll rate as somebody as being more effective in the game, sort of efficient with their actions, taking the team closer to the goal, creating chances. So I think especially there, you can see, as Craig was saying about Josh Campbell, sort of struggled to get into the game. And I thought that was a theme. Just Hibs kind of really, I don't really think they created. There was the one transition where the ball turned over and Kukarevich played in Chris Cadden for that chance. But apart from that, didn't create too much through the middle of the pitch, I felt.
No, and I think it's interesting. You can see like they have like the positions. That's the average positions as well, isn't it? Across the game.
Yeah, where they were pick up the ball and make passes. Yeah.
Miller and Cadden obviously very, very advanced, but their on ball value very, very low. And I think that's the downside, in those positions, is that they're not creative players in those areas. Like Miller has his uses and so does Cadden, but I feel like they're so similar that it's really difficult to get them to work. They both want to be out on the touchline, so we don't really have anybody drifting inside. And you can see the difference on the other side with Obita and Hoylett is that Hoylett will drift in, take up these inside positions and things like that. And yeah, through the middle, I actually thought Triantis I know he obviously got sent off, but in general was having quite a poor game as well. I didn't really think he got on the ball as much as he has done and used it very, very well. So and Kwon, I went back when I watched the game yesterday, he had one really good run in behind where I think maybe Ekpiteta gets on the ball and Kwon makes a run in and we get in and he drives forward. But there wasn't really much of that either. And I think going back to Campbell, I wondered if the idea was with Kwon and Triantis sort of sitting a bit deeper, forming that little square with Hora and Ekpiteta as like a kind of protection, pushing the fullbacks forward, that early crosses and early deliveries, it was more for if we get in the box, Campbell can be in and around. He's quite good in the air. He can pick up the second ball. We can then, if we lose it, we can counter press and maybe win it back higher up. I don't know if that was maybe thinking, but what happened was, when we're whipping it in, apart from that chance with Kukarevich, Motherwell were quite comfortable with it, and then they were clearing it beyond us, and then we were, susceptible to getting caught in the counter attack anyway. So it just didn't really work.
Yeah, and a lot of those crosses I felt came from sort of relatively deeper than you would want as well.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's definitely been a theme of the David Gray team to get the ball out wide early, and as soon as we look up, it's like we are trying to get it in a lot quicker, which I don't particularly mind. But yeah, it was it's sometimes very, very deep, and that's not really. And if Kukarevich is dropping in the build up or Campbell, then it's not really giving them time to get up the pitch and to get into the box. So. Yeah, and again, maybe looking back and looking at the bench, maybe it was a case of, well, we don't really have too many other attacking options off the bench, and therefore we'll stick with that team. And if the game's going to plan, we'll put the more attacking players on towards the end and try and nick it. But then the game just sort of fell apart with a couple of instances. But Yeah, I would have felt like maybe with Rudy on starting that game and maybe another. I mean, I don't know what you could have done potentially. You could have put Campbell out to the right, but I don't know if that necessarily would have worked either. But it just would have been good to have one or two, a touch more creativity in that starting 11.
Yeah, I totally agree. And then obviously the downfall then comes with the 2 goals that Motherwell score. David Gray talked about it in the week about kind of noting their set piece threat. A lot of their goals coming from set piece situations this season, and then Hibs go and concede 2 goals from set pieces. What coming to the first goal first? What was your view on that? It was just, I mean, it wasn't an overly complicated routine, was it? It was well executed, but Hibs, they've kind of you've got to try and stop that happening, haven't you?
Yeah, I think it's actually a really poor foul that Campbell gives away. It's sort of nothing in the middle of the pitch, and I think it's maybe Lennon Miller that gets away from him, and he just sort of keeps pulling his arm and pulling him back, and I'm pretty sure Triantis is in and around. There's like a bit of cover there. I don't think
plenty of players behind the ball. I do remember that. Aye.
So it was just a bit pointless, and then and it obviously just looked like his it's a really good run. It's actually a really, really run. It starts offside, comes onside, but it does. I don't know quite how Hibs are looking to set up from those things, but again, it is off Campbell that the run is made. Whether that's his responsibility, if it's a bit more zonal or if it's picking up, but regardless if it's man to man or zonal, it's in his area, and actually, it's a really good finish because it becomes a really tight angle. And somebody mentioned about Bursic maybe coming out. But when you look at it back, it's kind of, that's probably the only place that ball's going in the net is there, and it's hit with such good power. But yeah, it just goes back to just that we make one lapse in concentration and we're punished.
Yeah, I think people the natural conclusion is to look at the goalkeeper when a goal is scored at the near post, but it's wet with it. It's the power. First of all, the power that he's hit it with, and he's hit that directly into the roof of the net. So the goalkeeper's going to obviously naturally go to the floor almost a wee bit in those situations to try and make himself a bit bigger. But it's a good finish. It's a really, really good finish. I don't think you can take that away at all. No. And then the second goal, obviously, is just a mess, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, obviously before that we had Hoylett's equaliser, and I think, I suppose, to try and glean one sort of bit of positivity from the game was he was different class and really great touches and good movement, and he's actually a lot more mobile than I thought he was going to be. But it's great, he obviously pressed it. It's a couple of minutes as well after conceding, which is again quite a good sign. It shows us that the team are a bit more resilient, and he obviously pinched it off O'Donnell, and it's just a great run, cut inside, and a really good finish. But I sort of felt from like the 60th minute onwards, like 62 minutes to just until Triantis was sent off, that the team really tired, and I just felt Motherwell were starting to kind of creep back into the game a little bit. And at that point, you were hoping, right, maybe Ellie off the bench, or obviously then Campbell went off, Rudy came on, Kurevich went off, Gale came on. We just sort of seemed to lose it in that little bit of period. And I think when Motherwell's changes sort of gave them a bit of a spark and a bit of a lift, and their goal, I mean, obviously Triantis gets the second yellow, which it's a crazy decision from him to go in like that. Like having I don't know if you've seen the dive back again. If you've watched that, it's tough. I do. It's one of them that I sort of think. I don't think it's a penalty. I'm not quite sure it's a booking. He does go looking for it. There is contact though, but I can kind of, if it was on the other side, I'd probably be wanting a yellow. But it's just a crazy. It's a crazy tackle. And again, he was somebody a bit like Campbell, sort of 10 minutes before. You could see him tiring. You could see him sloppy in possession and things. And he was probably somebody that you were thinking, right, he probably needs to come off. And obviously, the reason I'm bringing that up is, it's that 3 minutes before, like, we're just a bit disorganized before we've kind of worked out the subs and what we're going to do. And, it's another thrown into the box, but Kwon just, I mean, Halliday doesn't have to do much movement really to just run off him and tap it in. It's just it's a really, really poor goal.
It's exactly that. You highlight the first goal has been a really good run, at least from the Motherwell player. But then the second one, Halliday, he just sort of ambles into an area, doesn't he? And it's one of those ones where, only Kwon would be able to tell you really what he's thinking there, because he's obviously probably got an eye on the ball, but he just completely stops, doesn't he? It's a really strange one.
Yeah, because obviously before that, Motherwell were getting a few set pieces and a few throw-ins and stuff like that, and we were pretty. I thought we defended like pretty resolute. They're quite a big team, and we were doing pretty well against them, but and really organised. I don't know if Kwon is just expecting there to be a win by O'Hora or Ekpiteta first, and he's just anticipating the second ball, and it kind of clears everybody. And it's just, and I think David Gray mentioned it afterwards. It is pretty unforgivable, these things, because it's not happening at the other end for us, and we're just getting punished for it.
It must be incredibly frustrating that as a manager to have, it's quite obvious that there would have been a lot of work done on set pieces during the week, and then it's just two people switching off. Really, it is, it must be infuriating for David Gray, I'd imagine.
Yeah, and I think as well on the other side of that, in big moments in the game, obviously that they're just not falling for us. Like Kurevic's chance, in the first half and has 2 goals at it. Then he hits the bar. I don't know if he quite means to head it. It kind of comes off the back of him, but it gets cleared off the line. Maybe not hit the bar, but those big moments. And then obviously Cadden has his big chance, and I do believe if you take that goal, I just feel like we'll be a bit more settled into the game. Motherwell then have to commit a little bit more, and then I don't know, maybe the game turns out different. It's easy in hindsight to say, but it just seemed as the game went on, like we got punished for lapses in concentration. I think the coaching staff maybe got punished for not making subs or taking players off who were tiring when they could have done potentially, which is again easy to say in hindsight. And then after that, obviously we've thrown subs on to try and nick something, but by then, if you look at the team that was on the park with 10, I didn't have confidence that we were going to get anything out of that.
Yeah, we can sort of see a more sort of visual representation of what you've kind of said there. Big moments not falling for Hibs, really. So this is kind of just, this chart here just sort of tracks the expected goals as it accumulates through the game for both teams. Obviously, Hibs there and the sort of purple, and Motherwell in the gold. And you can see here, you've around that big spike between the 15-20 minute mark. That's those chances for Kugarevic not falling at all. Hibs sort of lightly knocking on the door up until half time, and then you've got the other big spike is that Chris Cadden chance. And then you can kind of see, it's just sort of typical of the way the game panned out. You can see Motherwell created next to nothing until that first goal goes in. And even then, it's rated as quite low expected goals, which tells you again how good the finish was. And then after that, I think sort of really sort of substantiates what you were saying there about how Motherwell started to get a grip of the game. And started to come into it more. They had that big chance. I think it was Zach Robinson. The ball felt him in the box and he's put it wide. But they certainly looked a bit more in the ascendancy. Obviously, had to get the goal back. But then even before the Triantis red card, and then afterwards as well, there's just nothing else created there from a Hibs point of view. And then you can see that final spike there is where Andy Halliday knocks in the winning goal. So I think, do you feel that kind of does bear out what you were saying there about how the big moments not going Hibs' way and then being punished in those same moments at the other end?
Yeah, I think it's just that, without Bowie and Boyle and Yuan, whatever's going on there, like that's three starters, isn't it? Really, let's be honest. And if you take that out, a Hibs team who are low on confidence and struggling anyway, it's a big ask. And I think I said in a tweet yesterday, like, Kurevic, the more I see him, the more I'm getting more and more impressed with him. I think he's putting a shift in. I actually had a look on stats, but I'm pretty sure like his pressures and his pressure regains are like extremely high compared to the league average. And I started to wonder, is there so much demand on him doing that he's then, when he's getting these chances, he's just a bit more laboured because he's having to put so much work in. I'm not quite sure. It probably requires a deeper dive, but he's getting shots away. His expected goals is pretty much up with the league average. So I sort of was thinking, if he puts in that penalty against Rangers and he scores that header today, we're looking at sort of 4 goals in 7 or 8 games and, a pretty good return and solid start. Yeah. So, we need to stick with him because we've got no other options. And although Gale can come off the bench, I can't imagine him being a starter or leading the line or anything like that at this stage. So, again, I don't know if there's, thoughts about the shape and Iredale was on the bench. Does that allow us to move to 3 at the back and get Obita and Cadden into the wing back positions, go with 2 players up top or Hoylett just in behind them? Then you can keep Kwon and Triantis deep. I don't know if that's something that we experimented 3-5-2 in the summer and pre-season, and we've tried it at the start of the season. Do you go back to it? I really don't know. I'd love to add a penny for David Gray's thoughts at the moment.
Yeah. Well, everybody's got 2 weeks to stew on it before the next game. As we now, as I said, head into that international break. A lot of questions hanging over the Hibs team at the moment as we go into that. As you say, are missing some key players. And you'd hope at the very least the likes of Boyle and Joe Newell will be back after that international break. Again, Ellie Yuan, as you said, not utilised at all at the weekend, which did seem kind of peculiar in the circumstances. So yeah, a lot of questions. I don't know if we've been able to provide you with too many answers today, folks, but such is the nature of things at the moment. But we're going to leave it there for today. Thank you, as always, for joining us, and thank you to Craig for joining us as well. Some great insights, as always. If you're watching on YouTube, please do consider hitting that subscribe button as we continue to try and grow the channel. We really do appreciate it. But for now, we're going to leave you there. Thanks for joining us again, and we'll see you very, very soon. Cheers.
Thank you.